Welcome to my August 2022 webinar. This one is on divine guidance, and I subtitled it, Learning to Distinguish Divine Guidance from the Noise in Your Head and the Jumble of Feelings in Your Body. I want to focus on a very practical aspect of this. In fact, basically, I'm assuming that everybody who watches this webinar, either live now or on YouTube in the future, already understands that there is divine guidance, because I could spend a whole webinar trying to justify and prove and demonstrate that it's true. But that's not what I want to accomplish tonight. Tonight, I want to focus on our learning to recognize when we receive divine guidance and however we receive it. And so we can follow a path that is going to be most favorable to us. Favorable is better defined as learning our lessons than avoiding all pain, discomfort, and receiving nothing but good things. And that's an important thing to understand. It's not the kind of mood making or wish fulfilling that it's often presented as by some people. And often it's about getting what you want. And when you're seeking divine guidance, it's a much better to have the attitude that you will accept whatever comes along to you. And so you can ask for something, but know that the path may require that you feel some challenges in your life. And those could be in any area. It could be health or wealth or relationships, the typical things that can happen to you. And so it's really important that we have an innocence about this, both for the direction that we receive and for, of course, even maybe, well, equally as importantly, as getting a right message. And so I think oftentimes we feel that it's hard to make a decision about what to do or what to choose between options. And sometimes we feel we just have to accept our fate, that life is going to just go on and there's not really much control over our destiny. And we feel in facing those kinds of things that we would wish, when we're facing those kind of things, that a higher intelligence would show us the way forward. But most of the time, most of us don't trust the inner voices and the feelings that we experience to know which are divine guidance and which are just noise in our head or feelings in our body. Now, we can receive that guidance through any of the senses. We can see it, we can hear it. Oftentimes, it's just on a level of bodily feeling, which we might call touch, but that's inside usually, that we feel we're moved in a particular direction. And of course, taste and smell can also be involved. And so sometimes we're having the experience that we know that this is the way we should go, even if it's not necessarily the way we think we should go, if we just have that level of feeling within us. So we want to be able to trust those feelings, though. And oftentimes there's so much noise and so much feeling going on that we feel very insecure about it. It's like, well, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. I think this is the direction that nature is taking me, but I can't be sure. Now, in my experience, the way that happens, the not being sure, is that I'll have a thought or a feeling or, I'll see something that will say to me, this is what you're supposed to do, or this is the direction you're supposed to go. And then immediately I have another thought, still in my voice, if you will, in my head, that questions that or wants a different path forward, wants to try something different. And this can be over very mundane things well, I have two sets of car keys, and it's like, which set am I going to take? Because they have different keys on them, except for the car. That's the same. And, I'll go like, which set should I take? And it's a fun little game in a way to go like, oh, this is the one I'm supposed to have with me today. Supposed to be using in the car. And see, can I get something in some direction in its pure form? So I play that little game sometimes, just to remind myself and to train myself to feel those impulses or see the direction and go that way, even though other things go like, well, it really doesn't matter, at least at this point. Because the way you kind of verify it is that later on you find out, oh, the reason I took that set of keys is because there was something else besides the ignition key that I wound up needing. One of them has my Hy-Vee fuel saver bonus card attached to it. And if I don't have it with me, then it's harder to use it when I'm at Hy-Vee. So that's just a trivial example, but I think it's important to use a trivial example to demonstrate that we can get guidance about absolutely anything. And it can be important, and it's often very useful when it's important, but it may also be trivial. It may not really matter that much at all. You'll get by whichever set of keys you take. And there are workarounds. So I hope that gives you that sense that you can approach the guidance, approach the receiving of guidance, basically all the time and in every way. And in that way, when you get to something that's really major, a big decision about where you're going to live or an investment or a relationship, that you can trust the information that you get. Now, again, in my experience, the guidance comes instantaneously after the question is asked in my head. If I say, which keys, the answer is immediately there. And then the rest of it is noise, the doubting and the, oh, well, maybe, it doesn't really matter, like that. That's just noise. So one of the characteristics of divine guidance is that it is quite immediate. Now, it isn't always absolute. That is, sometimes the guidance is very clear that you should go a certain way. And sometimes it's like, could go one way or the other, really, and it doesn't matter that much. And I have this sense of the guides and angels sort of going like, oh, why are you bothering me with this? But it's okay. You can still ask the question. And then you may get that ambiguity. Now, I get used to using that sense of feeling and, whether it's clear or it's kind of vague or have a clear thought or, it's like, there's no real push in a particular direction. When I'm doing my healing work and I have to tune in and check whether a situation, an energy situation in a body is important or is not important. And so, they're basically ask that kind of a question, and then you get that answer. And you usually get it immediately. And most of the time it's quick, it's there immediately, it's quick. It feels really good. And I'm answering the question, how do you know what it is? Right? You have this voice, you have this thought that comes, I ask a question, I get this thought, or I get this feeling in the body, or I hear something. And you go, how do I know that that's it? And the answer is there is a comfortable feeling in the body with that. And it's good to train yourself to recognize that feeling and to know it. But if there's a lot of noise in the circuits, you're hearing things, you're seeing things, you're feeling things, etc., then that feeling may not last but a split second. But it's like when it comes, then you know you're on the right track. And you've got to be alert to that, as I was saying. You got to be alert to that this is what I got. And then go like, ah, yes, and the rest is noise, because I can hear is just bubbling, in there. Bubbling is a nice word for that, or churning, if you will. There's this energy flowing around inside, and it's creating thoughts and feelings, and they don't mean a thing. Now, when things are really bad, and like you're anxious, or you're unhappy, you're feeling really sad or something like that, and you ask a question, you just may not get much. And so then it's important to take some steps to just settle yourself down. And that usually means sitting down. Some people prefer to lie, but sitting down I'll use, because that's what I use. And just put the attention in the body and the breathing and where you're sitting, what you're sitting on, feeling where the contact is with the body, and keeping an awareness of the breathing, and just wait till you feel settled. And when you feel settled, then you ask the question, which way should I go? Should I paint the house green or blue? Literally, I just built a house, and I've had a million questions like that. And in picking out things, fixtures for the house, for instance, I had to do. And I went to, I actually went to two of the big home improvement stores, Lowe's and Menards. And it doesn't matter which ones they were. And, in going to pick out something, literally just walking through, there are probably a couple of hundred things on display. And, you go like, I have no idea going in what I should pick, what I even like. I'm not an interior decorator. And then just going through and looking at things, going like, I like that feature. I like that feature. I like that feature. And then you look at a fixture and you go like, that's got the features I like. And so, we'll buy that one. I had to pick out a couple of love seats for my living room, just this, I guess, 2 weeks ago. And I had been looking at love seats, hundreds of them. And it took that much. I literally spent hours because I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I liked. So I had no basis for making a decision. This is really important, that I was in a situation that I didn't have a basis for making a decision. And we're often in that kind of situation when we're looking for divine guidance. We're looking for somebody to tell us what to do. And so as I was looking through all of these love seats, I did eventually find features that I liked, and finally landed on a love seat that actually had the features that I wanted. And I'm not even sure I can describe what those features are, and it's not worth doing it here in this context, but I just knew it. I developed something with like, that's what I want. That's what's going to work here. And that had to do with color, and it had to do with, the shape of the love seat, and its design features, its physical design features. And so I, attended to that until I finally found the love seat that had the characteristics I wanted, and then ordered it. And Vetter and I put it together, put two of them together. That was a learning experience in itself, but that's not about divine guidance. That's just working your way through it. And sometimes that's what we do. We just have to work our way through it, because there's no magic about it. It's just, learning how to assemble something. But there is that process, as I was describing here, of looking at different things and seeing what resonates, seeing what feels good, and then collecting the different points together, and and then going like, you see that and you go like, it feels right. That's what I should be buying. And so there's that nice feeling. It really feels good. It's the same kind of feeling that you get when, say, you're doing a math problem and you get an answer and you get a feeling, oh, I got the right answer. And you trust that. You learn to trust that, as opposed to if you did a math problem and you felt really insecure, you wouldn't know whether you were right. And you might want to check your work, do it over again. Various ways of approaching that kind of a question. And you don't have the feeling. But most of the time, anything we know, we go like, how do you know it's true? And you go like, because I feel it. Intellectually, we process that. But ultimately, it's like, I feel that. It feels good to me. And the feelings are often ahead of the intellect, in the sense that, oh, I get a right feeling, and then the intellect kind of comes in and checks and makes sure that it makes sense, and applies logic and everything else to it. But truth or validity is often just a good feeling inside. So that's the kind of feeling that can come. And as I say, it may only last a split second, but when it comes, there's that aha, as people like to say. It's like, that's right. That's the direction I should go. Otherwise, we wind up processing things intellectually and emotionally, in terms of our emotional states associated with all kinds of, experience, every kind of experience. And it's one of the reasons, I think, why, this is a bit of an aside, but I think it's one of the reasons why psychology spends so much time, and it usually takes a long time, to wade through all the information that, as a person comes up with stuff and like interpret it. And what I'm suggesting here is there's no interpretation. You get that direction and you actually, so to speak, exclude the interpretation. You just get the direction, and that's the direction you go. So if you say, should I go left or right? And that you can do that literally, by the way. You're driving and you get to a fork in the road and you go like, do I go left or right? You don't know which way to go. And you can just check in, settle for a moment, and ask the question, and then just follow the feeling. And, if you get lost, I'm joking, of course, but that's how you recognize the divine guidance. And, why is this important? Well, one, because we need direction. We need to make decisions. But the thing is, we're moving in that direction that gives us the maximum support of nature, as we often refer to it. That what we do, we make a decision that works, we make another decision that works, and so on and so forth. And we say, well, I have that nature's support. I'm moving in a smooth direction. And then sometimes there will be challenges. And it's like, how do I navigate these challenges? And again, it's just that sense of, oh, this is what I should do. And there may be some places where it doesn't work as smoothly as you might like. And then you can step back and look at that bigger picture and say, well, what is it I'm supposed to learn about this experience? So there's a sense of development that comes with this. When you're following nature's direction, you're following the path of spiritual development, you're following the path of human growth and evolution. And so that's one of the main rewards of that. And ultimately, that support of nature evolves to the point where it's completely automatic and you feel everything is just done. And the thoughts that we have are almost just a way of nature communicating to us, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. And everything has that feeling that it's just as it should be. and it's completely automatic, meaning we don't have to stew over things. That does not mean that we don't evaluate or look at different options, right? And we can look at the options, then we go, which is the option I should choose, as opposed to, now let me see this option will give me this, and that option will give me that, and and it's like it's hard to make the decision. But when we get used to doing this, then we develop that automation in life. Everything just happens, and it happens smoothly. And why is that good for us? Because it means we're not stressed out. We avoid the stress of having to make decisions. We avoid the stress even associated with challenges. Oh, I have to do this. I have to overcome that. I actually went through one of those recently where I had to contact one of the stores I had bought some stuff from. And it involved a non-delivery. There were a couple of them, actually. And so I had to make a whole lot of phone calls over the course of a couple of months. And I actually got to a point where I went like, I can't even face it. I can't even make the call again. And I felt really stuck. And then finally I went to recognize that I'm stuck, and where is not stuck in me. And I found that. And then I made the phone call, and that turned into about a half a dozen phone calls. But they were calling me this time. So finally we had gotten to that point where I was getting that support. And, it evolved. Everything eventually got taken care of. And I didn't have to work hard for it. I just had to do it. And so I say that because we always have to do, unless the guidance tells us not to, we have to do stuff, but it should develop that as we progress with this, we get that feeling that it's not work. It's not hard to do. Something comes up, I deal with it. Which way to go with it? Let me see. That direction. So that's how it works. That's the way that flow of nature moves us along. It's always there. This is really important. It's always there. We don't have to go looking for it. It's omnipresent and essentially omniscient. And we can always access it, but sometimes we have to sit down and pause. And it may come to us, oh, maybe we're meditating or something. And there's been this question, like, what should I do about such and such? And we'll just be meditating, and then just like, oh, this is what I should do. It's just obvious. I should do this. And it feels good. And then we just go back to meditation. And when we come out of meditation, then we kind of check in, is that really the right direction? Because sometimes when we're meditating, great ideas come that aren't actually great ideas. They're just coming from that normalization of the physiology. So we need to be really grounded when we're opening to receiving this guidance. And if we're not grounded, then do something to get grounded. And sometimes people come to see me because they can't get grounded and they have a big decision to make. This doesn't happen real often, but it does happen to me. And they'll come to me and they want to make a decision. And usually they ask me what they should do. But what I do with my work is to settle them so they can find that guidance. And then they just say, oh, I feel like I should be doing this. And then comes the noise usually. And I just go, okay, you said it. Now just settle with that and see how that feels. So I can be helpful to people by helping to get them settled down with energy work usually, and my calm presence and wisdom. And then they are ready to make a decision. Or just, as I say, it comes to them. It's not really making decisions. We use that terminology because that's how we normally have to function with it. But it isn't really making a decision. It's like the decision's already made. The decision's already made. Nature knows which way we should go. And we just have to open to it so we do the thing that is most evolutionary for us. So I think that's basically all I wanted to say about this. Now, in the group clearing session that we're going to do shortly, which will not be on YouTube, we'll work with a question that you have, each of you, in silence, just on the subtle level. You'll be thinking, and I'll be tuning in to everybody, and selecting, well, actually, my role is to help you get to getting guidance. And then from the guidance, you'll make your decision and go ahead and move forward. Good. And I'll just throw in here that the next webinar is scheduled, and I'm going to say somewhat tentatively, for September 20th. That will be a week after the usual time, but I got something going on that week, the previous week. So we'll meet on Tuesday, September 20th. And I really don't have a topic for sure yet. I've had a suggestion to talk about how much I can do for terribly sick people and how I handle and relate to terribly sick people. So I may do that, or we may do something else. I don't have guidance on that yet. And it's interesting, actually, it's a nice example, because I sat down today and I went, okay, what does nature want me to do next month? There must be something. And I had a sort of hint, but it wasn't clear enough to actually pick out a topic. So we'll just have to see how that unfolds. I have this sense that it's coming, but it's not quite ready to manifest into a specific course of action. So sit tight. I'll let you know what it's going to be, but we plan to do it on September 20th, unless things change, which they sometimes do. Okay, I'm going to end the recording here.